All right. Gonna wait for people to show up, but yeah. So you've read the title. We are reacting to some of my old build videos. Not the, yeah, they're private on YouTube because they don't really stand up to time, so to speak. I already did one of these. I did it with the original Celeste build, but I thought it would be fun to do it again. So that's what we're going to be doing, and we're gonna analyze what I did wrong. Trust me, there's a lot. But let's get started with reacting to some of this stuff. So first and foremost, this is going to be starting off with essentially a demo of the, I need to check the audio settings real quick. So give me a sec to do that, just a minute. Because previously, I remember I had issues with the audio being too quiet, so. All right. I think that should be fine. So, here we go. And so, the way I used to do these videos is I just started with, I made a demo song of the guitar, either myself or I asked somebody else to play the guitar. In this case, I asked a friend to play the guitar. And yeah, so we're gonna have a listen to that first. I've kind of wanted to go back and redo this song because it doesn't really hold up all that well. Just straight out of, well, here you see the finished product, which, I mean, if we're just gonna stop here, look at these, like, inlays. I mean, and all this, we're gonna go into more detail about why all this just doesn't work. So this was an ESP something that I can't remember what it was. I'm probably gonna mention it later on, but I had put up a sort of, on like a musician's website kind of thing, I put up a little note saying that, hey, do you have a guitar that's just been lying around that you're not using and isn't worth anything? I'll buy it off your hands. And then we customized it and sold it off somewhere. It would be really nice to know where this is so that I could possibly do a little bit of maintenance. And yeah, this was one of the first instruments that I worked on. This is the first instrument that I worked on after I started school for carpentry, and skills just weren't there yet, but it was a fun experiment. Anyway, the demo song. So I believe it was the Revolver Mark 3.5 for the tones. The drums were straight off of Guitar Pro, pads same way, and everything else like that. I don't think the guitar was intonated all that well, if at all. I don't believe I knew how to do setups properly at that point, and I should not be doing close-ups of this sort of work because it's just, I don't know. And I think I put some sort of, I don't even know what I put on the fretboard, but as you can see, there is, I think, bits of tape still there. I have no idea what's going on here. This inlay is just atrocious. So there is a reason why I've taken the, that's stuff that I haven't sanded away. That's sealer coat right there, and that's just wood and glue. I'm glad to know that I have come a lot farther from these days because this is frankly quite embarrassing. And yeah, this song takes forever to actually get started. It has this very, very long intro. look at the action as well. The strings are not even sitting properly in the nut, and the action is very, very high. And now the song properly like starts after a minute and a half. I love that there's supposed to be a sort of flute in the background, but you just hear a sort of every now and then. There's some cool riffs and ideas in the song, but definitely could be better. And I didn't play any of the guitar, but we didn't have footage of him playing. So I had to go back and kind of imitate his playing for some parts of the video. And the video itself is just filmed in my apartment that I lived in. Didn't do any sort of set dressing. Didn't make the video look all that interesting. This one's blurry as hell. But we gotta start somewhere. This is, after all, 2013, I believe. Yeah, it has to be 2013, I think. There's ideas in there, like basic concept of the guitar and ideas of what I did were somewhat good ideas. It's just the actual practical doing it and getting the results that just didn't really come to fruition. Also the fact that I used like 50,000 woods. It's got ash. It's got what the body was made out of originally, agathis, nickel neck, rose and fretboard. Then it's got Ubinga Zebrano inlays and walnut binding. So there's a lot of woods. Not really bad. Also, check this out. So that string isn't really sitting all that well in that nut there. And I didn't oil the fretboard enough. It's very scratchy. And the frets aren't polished either. Wow. I should never have taken like close-ups of this guitar because it's worrying to look at. But then we're gonna get to the party trick of this guitar right now. Poorly edited, but
Remember the little red button? Yeah. Push the little red button. And you may want to put on a seatbelt.
yeah, it has LEDs. I think it had 8 AA batteries in a pocket that I made, and then LED strip, and it's just, you can see the strip in there. It's not especially well done, like at all, but you know, the concept was there. Just would need a little bit of refinement to make it actually work properly. I do like this chord progression, I believe. song as well. It's something that I wrote with one of my friends in high school. He did a lot of the heavy lifting on the songwriting. Then I just added some parts, bass, drum, stuff like that. Some ideas along the way. I always wanted to kind of record it, and I wish I would have recorded it a little bit better than I did. I was also still learning to use Logic at this point. That was barely in tune. 2014 is when I put this out, so yeah, 2013 is probably when I worked on this guitar. Next video, so the first build video.
Hey there, it's Tomster on the behalf of Indie.
Yeah, 28th of October 2013.
Structural Productions once again. Here we're looking at the NV build video. So basically what we did, we bought a old used guitar, completely left to lie in the corner, and decided to make something new out of it. This guitar in question was I think 7-year-old LTD H50.
Okay, so there we go. It was a H50.
The little small mistake I did here in the very beginning, I got a little too hasty and I actually dismantled the whole thing before checking if everything worked.
It doesn't matter. If something doesn't work, I can just put in new hardware. It's fine.
You'll understand why later. So yeah, first things first, gotta get rid of that paint. And
now, there's been one of my most viewed videos is the refinishing video or guitar refinishing video, where I sand away the previous lacquer, sealer, and stuff like that. And a lot of comments are asking me why I don't use a heat gun and a scraper. And you'll see some of it here, but mostly it's because the scraper can actually gouge in if you're not careful, and the heat gun can actually scorch the wood, which is then going to be a royal pain to get rid of.
As nice as those stickers are, they need to go. So I use a hot air gun and a scraper to actually get rid of everything.
Oh yeah, I should also point out that back then, when I did commentary on everything, I edited the video in full, then I put a little zoom mic on my table, and I watched the video, and I did the commentary as I watched through it. It was one take. I never edited it, really, and which ends with me not really figuring out what I want to say throughout the video, which doesn't make for a very good video. And in general, how I edited these things down was I took all the footage that I had, and I just sped it up by 2,000%, and then I put it in as that. There was fairly little editing work, just taking out little bits here and there, but mostly it's everything that I filmed just at 2,000%, back to back to back. Pretty lazy editing, and yeah, I don't know. I liked time lapses back then, and I guess I thought this was somewhat similar.
If you plan on doing this at home, be very sure to actually use a rebreather or a mask of sorts, and safety goggles, and all the necessary safety equipment. Because a few things you should know. First of all, you're stripping polyurethane with hot air, which basically means that all the polyurethane is sort of evaporating into the air as a sort of smoke. You inhale that, it's very poisonous, very bad for you. And second of all, well, there's hot, steaming pieces of paint flying all over the place. So you get it on your arms, which I did a couple of times.
Okay, this is both very cringy, very awful, and extremely funny, and just, wow. To think that I actually thought that these videos were good when I put them out is somewhat terrifying, because they're not. They're really not.
It will burn you. Same way the fumes affect your eyes. You might feel dizzy and so on, so just be careful.
I barely got all the stuff off.
Other than that,
and
you can actually see that all the paint came off fairly easily.
as you've seen the finished product already, we know that I didn't get all the sealer coat and paint off of the cutaways. I should have just used... there was a bobbin sander, so I should have just used that a bit more. Don't make that face. We all start somewhere. We do. It's just... I know that I can take the mickey out of myself. Because I know all the things that I did wrong, and more so I'm just like pointing all these things out to other people, but I can be as judgmental of what I've done as possible because, well, it's me, so I don't mind being harsh toward my older self. It's just more I'm happy that I've learned from my mistakes.
Just had to finish it up and use a orbital sander to get the rest of it out.
Which I don't believe I'm actually getting, even though there's a lot of color grading here and it's a rather fuzzy image. It looks like I'm not getting all of the sealer coat off entirely, which is a little bit problematic. Like you can see a streak there. I think that's bare wood, and then around it that is sealer still. Well, I don't know. It could be.
As you can see there, I'm switching between different kinds of grit paper. I decided to go with just really, really rough paper in the end. I think I ended up using 100 or I think 80. One thing you want to make sure is if you're actually using very low grit paper, make sure that you don't scratch the surface of the wood. If you're planning on repainting a guitar,
you will scratch the surface of the wood. You just need to move up the grits. So if you start with like an 80 grit and then get all the majority of the lacquer, sealer coat, and everything else off, then move through the grits. So 80, 100, 120, 180, 240, 320. And that way you'll get rid of the scratches incrementally instead of just, yes, I got everything off and that's it.
or that is, because it will be nearly impossible to get rid of those unless you want to take off like 0.5 millimeter worth of wood.
And there, the thing ended, but I still had stuff to say. I'm going to be right back. Give me a second. All right, sorry about that. Let us continue. Hi, Poochie. Look. There's a dog. She came to say hi. Anywho, let's soldier on to the next one.
Hey, it's Tomster here on the behalf of Indie Structural Productions. Now we're back with the Envy build. This time we're getting cracking at the neck. First things first, I decided to go with the sort of different approach with the
really
fret markers. So first,
like
things,
once again,
of course, you should find
it's
yourself a very sharp chisel.
The idea is there, the execution not so much. And the way that I'm using a chisel as well is one of the reasons why I have a big scar going through my hand. Because I did put a chisel through my hand while I was at school. I don't see anything here yet, so that's still to come somewhere down the line. But yeah, clamp down your work. If you're using something sharp, try and predict if something goes wrong, where is the blade going to go? Right now, if the blade is going to jump somewhere, it's going to go straight into my finger right here because it's a direct path straight into my hand. I should not be holding my hand that close to the chisel. No way. It's somewhat terrifying to watch this.
So I found some waste Zebrano pieces lying around. decided to put them into...
And here's the thing. It was all well and good, but I didn't do anything yet to the 12th fret. So, not really planning ahead too well. I do not remember what the mixture here of what it was, but
Good
it
use.
didn't look that great.
I'm using a mixture of... can't remember what glue, and black dye to actually set the zebrana pieces in place.
Okay, well that's...
Then, of course, there was the sanding and actually whittling them down until they were flush with the entire neck.
They could have been done better.
Next up was...
And if I would have removed the frets and refretted the entire thing, I would have gotten a much better result. If I would have more accurately measured out how I'm going to do this, it would also look a lot better.
It's actually cutting a veneer for the headstock.
And you can tell that I haven't prepared the commentary and I'm just kind of winging it as I'm going because it's not really any consistency. I'm not really
And be sure to actually
giving
clamp
any proper
the
information.
headstock in between two pieces of wood so that you don't clamp your clamps right onto your neck, because that will leave a mark.
Yeah. That is a good way to put it.
And while I'm busy tapping away at my phone, my classmate decided to have some fun with my camera.
All the earlier stuff is a learning experience. Oh, definitely, for sure. I mean, it is.
Moving on to the body veneer. This time I'm using ash, as I did with the headstock. Forgot to mention that.
There's
And
the thing about this, like me making these videos, is already at this point I'm kind of trying to kind of teach how to do this sort of stuff. But even I have no idea what I'm doing. So it makes very little sense for me to kind of teach how to do these sort of steps when I'm still learning myself. And that's the thing that bugs me. It's, while it is a learning curve, I should not be teaching other people to kind of repeat my mistakes.
using actually veneer tape to make sure that all the cracks and everything are covered. That way, making sure that there is actually a
I say actually
nice
way too much.
finish already, so you don't need to patch up too much.
And all this stuff I could have
We have
edited
the
out,
entire veneer
like
glued
out of the me tapping them away at the phone and stuff like that.
Fairly straightforward. Just use a hobby knife or a crafts knife to cut the veneer out.
And I should also say, make multiple small cuts. Do not try and cut all the way through on your first cut, which is what I'm doing here, because it will very often lead to a little bit of issues down the line.
What I first did, I went lightly around my drawing, making sure that there's enough space. I didn't go right on the line, just to make sure that if during the gluing process the veneer moves at all, I will not have the body wood showing through.
Now, it is a carved surface, so
Once again, patching up some.
I am going to use a vacuum bag for this. Unfortunately, the camera failed just as the vacuum went on.
Now this was very interesting. I got to actually use a vacuum press to glue the body veneer in place. Very new aspect for me, and
Yeah, the teacher said it's like whenever you're doing this sort of glue up, you need to put in water resistant polyurethane glue, and you need to wet the veneer. Sure for the glue, but wetting the veneer just causes issues because, as you can see, it's just crimpling up. So I don't really understand why.
interesting learning process. Now, the bad thing is
Probably
that
they
the
wanted they were thinking that it wouldn't curve onto the surface if it was dry, but it should. that the water makes it a bit more flexible, but it also makes things extremely hard to work on.
Video actually cuts out right as the vacuum press is going on, so I'm sad to say that you don't actually see exactly how this works, but I'll try and figure something out for the video. Using polyurethane glue, because combined with water, it actually makes for a very, very solid glue. And that makes sure that the body veneer will stay on.
Yeah, basically what it looked like. Next video.
Hi, it's Thompson here on the behalf of Indies.
So now I've done the side inlays for the side of the fretboard, and now I'm doing the middles out of Bibinga veneer. And I've done the headstock veneer as well.
Structural Productions.
Roughly
following
sanded the entire
indie
guitar.
video. Next up is actually finishing the fretboard inlays. First things first, of course, once again, making sure that your chisel is as sharp as it can be before even going anywhere near the neck. What I'm using here, I found a piece of Bubinga
And these are
veneer. And
all
I'm cutting
kind
that into
of
diamond
randomly
shapes.
cut shape. Like they're roughly diamonds, but they're not exactly measured out.
And now to actually sharpen my chisel before starting the inlay work. Very important part this, otherwise you are going to ruin your neck. You need to make sure that your chisel is as sharp as possible.
I really miss having whetstones and stuff to sharpen my things with, because none of my tools are that sharp. My new tools are. Well, new old tools. But, yeah, wow. I'm kind of ruining the edge on this already, because those were abalone.
So as you
Inlays.
saw there, a little bit of chiseling away. Doesn't require too much effort, seeing as it is a fairly simple design. Little dollop of glue, let it sit. I'm using just normal wood glue for this because that actually bonds the two woods together fairly well. And after you're done with that, make sure...
I gotta say, I really, really miss... I had a Ziltoid cup, one of the original Ziltoid cups that were sold, and somebody stole it, or broke it and stole it, or threw it in the I don't know, but I never found it again. Somebody at school took it.
Sure that you actually get
Which
a nice
sucks.
file. And
So now I'm going cross grain and I'm filing everything down. That's not something I go back and fix, by the way. So those scratches from the file do remain in the fretboard to this day, unless the person's done something to it. But I should have really refretted this entire neck.
get it.
Oh, hey, remember when I said about the stabbing myself with, or putting a chisel through my hand? Look, right here. Now, this is a little while after, and I have managed to do that to myself.
Completely flush with the
So,
entire
lessons learned.
rest of the fretboard.
Yeah.
Avoiding any sharp corners here, I see. Be careful not to actually round over your fretboard too much where the fret markers go.
Or if you do round it over like that, round it over evenly across every single fret, because that's not something I'm doing right now.
Now for the side inlays. Once again, I'm using a freshly sharpened chisel to do this.
Oh, wow.
Sure that
I
I
forgot
don't-
about that.
Damage the
So-
old inlay work.
Okay, so the fretboard it's a rosewood fretboard with the Zebrano side inlays, or inlays on the top. Then on the sides that I'm now cutting out, I'm putting in walnut. And then in the middle, there's Bibinga.
What I ended up using, I used some walnut,
Yeah.
I think binding material originally, and just cut small slivers in. There you go. There you can see actually how I do it close up. Same sort of process.
Again,
small
like I
dollop of
could
glue,
be doing this a
and
little
you're
bit
fine.
better. Like if I were to do this again, I would do this a bit differently. And the video just ends. There's no outro or anything. It's weird.
Hi there, Tomster here on the behalf of Indestructible Productions.
So,
Now we're getting very close to finishing the body and preparing for actual fine sanding and painting of the guitar. The veneer actually dried perfectly. The shape came out absolutely amazing. Very small flaws here and there that I just patch up with excess veneer that I have left. Very important to make sure that all the pickup cavities, all the knob switch holes and everything else, that all those are clear of any excess veneer.
right, so
What I'm doing here, I am marking.
it has the LEDs in it. So I'm gonna route out some shapes into the back of the guitar, sort of cavities, so I can get the batteries in and I can get the LEDs in. And then I just cover those up with plywood.
Out
Yeah.
the cavity for the hollow.
And
acoustic
also,
chamber.
while I route through on the
Now,
back of it, I do
being
go
one of the
over
first
the
times
top
using
and
the router
yep, it is one of the first times I'm using a router, and you can tell. Don't.
and making templates, you might actually want to do this a little differently.
Yes. Don't take away that much material and do it better.
But this is the way I did it this time around. I learned from my mistakes, and I'm sure not to make the same mistakes again. Notice that my small
There, I don't even mention what I did wrong, which isn't really educational. I just say that I do it differently. I should have elaborated on what I was doing and why I did it and what you should do differently. Yeah. Cut out most of the excess material and then take away the final bit with a router would be what I would say.
small DeWalt wasn't exactly capable of chewing through too much wood, so I got this bigger fest
Or
tool.
MDF. Oh, yeah. No, yeah.
Unfortunately for me,
I do go
our
through the
big
top.
fest tool has a locking problem, so the lock came off and essentially destroyed a part of the cavity.
Yeah.
No
That could
harm
happen.
done. I was managed to salvage this in the end, but at the time it did give me quite a heart attack. And next up is drawing the cut through for the actual cavity,
There,
or
you can
sound
see.
hole, whatever you want to call it.
There. I went through on the top right there with the router.
The thing is, when I was routing, a small portion of the router bit went through the top of the guitar. So I had to sort of compensate my plan, and I managed to actually come up with a solution that worked in the end.
How about in the background
Had
you
to
can
sort of
hear
alter my design, but no harm done. It turned out great.
people in the background talking.
Using different chisels and hobby knives, I slowly work away at a base.
You should
To start off.
clamp down your work for safety.
After I've worked the place to actually cut, I use a hobby saw to cut the rest
Coping saw.
of the sound holes, or cutaways, or whatever you want to call it. The
Sound holes, F-holes.
really risky part of this is making sure that you don't make the sound holes too thin where the top is. That's what I did, so this is why I need to make some reinforcement.
Oh right, yeah, forgot about this.
I basically use a small piece of plywood in the shape of the actual complete cavity and glue it down. This ensures that no part of the actual sound cavity.
Not only did I use the plywood, but the plywood didn't fit perfectly, so I put in a couple of strips of something and then
or
glued
cut
in the
away, or
plywood.
anything will break off in use with anyone who decides to use this guitar. I have to admit that this was a fairly experimental and learning process for me. Thankfully, I have
You don't
learned
say.
from my mistakes.
Okay,
After
so turns
has
out
been
I
nicely
wasn't
messed up,
fully
I go ahead.
satisfied with the work that I did. And now I didn't film it for some reason, but I've cut the binding channels, or routed away the binding channels for this guitar as well. Which is going to be an issue, because you can see that right here it's very, very thin. Right here there's a lot of material, and I'm going to bind it all with that.
And recut the holes and make sure that I do a proper job this time. Patience is exactly what you need when you do stuff like this. I have to admit that I was a little too eager going into the entire project, and that's why I ended up making more mistakes than need be. Of course, it would be best if you made no mistakes whatsoever, but what are you gonna do? Fairly straightforward, just cutting through the actual cutaway, making sure that I follow my design and that everything lines up as they should. Hello, it's Tomster here on behalf of Indestructible Productions once again. Here we are with the Envy build, and this time we are trying to route the binding channel. Little bit of new technology for me, so I had to learn how to adjust and make jigs and everything else to actually get this job done. Of course, there are multiple ways of doing this. The main problem in case of this build was the fact that because the entire top was so contoured and
Hi. So, my microphone ran out of battery. I don't know when it ran out of battery, but it did now. I don't know how much. I might not have time to finish this up now. So, let's see, there's 4 minutes, 5, 3, 4. Okay. Now, there's not much to go. I need to go take the dog out. Okay, I'll watch a little bit more.
made ergonomic in every single shape. It was a difficult shape to route with a handheld router. But overall, with some adjustments, I managed to get the final product. Now to the very interesting part, which is the actual binding. Now there's the same sort of wall-nut binding that I used in the...
Okay, so I have a pan with water in it, and I just put the binding in there. Technically, the principles are correct, water and heat, but it doesn't need to be heated water. More that you wet the wood that you're gonna use, and then use either a heat gun or a sort of iron that you can bend things on.
neck side inlays. And
Oh yeah, and I used the clamps and everything.
water and put the binding material in the water to soak, so that way it's a lot more flexible when trying to apply it to a...
I mean, the principle was right there.
Basically the thing that...
And
really
oddly enough, it did
makes
work
this
out
easier
a lot
is
better than I thought it would.
the glue just normal wooden glue once again that binds the
But
two woods together.
there's a lot of glue.
I use masking tape, and the masking tape itself is pretty much better than using 50,000 clamps to do the same sort of deal.
Yeah.
Of course, I use 4 or 5 different clamps to actually get the bigger contours, or the smaller little contours, bind it. Working out the headstock shape there, trying to go for a classic IP look.
Classic IP look. I don't know.
Doing this, you should be very careful when cutting things like this. I almost chopped my finger off right there.
Yeah.
After that's figured out,
Glad that my headstocks look a little bit better than this
matter of sand
nowadays.
and small saws.
Oh yeah, I used a Dremel to do the
Now, with the headstock, I couldn't
binding
really
channel.
put this down to a router either because of all the angles and
I could have.
everything else.
I've done it
just
before.
would've been hard.
So a good way of actually doing headstock binding channel is super glue masking tape a block of wood onto your headstock, so the front of it, just to lift it up off of the router table a little bit, then a rebate cutter to cut binding in general, and you'll have a flat surface to go on, and that will do it just fine. Once again, easier if you've removed the frets and you want to do binding along the fretboard as well.
Either because of all the angles.
This
and
is
everything
just
else. It just would have been too hard. So instead,
No,
I used
this
a
is
Dremel
difficult.
tool to cut the channel for the binding.
the
Now, same sort of deal here. It's a
the router table is far simpler. This is doing it the hard way.
except for the actual headstock, I don't soak the binding material. I cut smaller pieces out of it because I don't need to actually bend it all around every single angle.
And again, the principle there is
Contour. It's
correct,
just gonna be
but
way too difficult to
doing
do
it a little
so.
bit more carefully
Cut
and making sure that my
glue those together
joints
and into the
for
headstock.
all the binding
Once again,
actually look a lot better than they
After
do
that's
here.
done, I use a small hand plane to
Spoke
put
shave.
it down, and sanding paper to sand down.
Spoke shave is
the,
completely
binding
unnecessary
material
at this
so
point.
it's level
It's,
with the rest
but-
of the stock.
or the way I was using it, at least, it was overkill. That bobbin sander would do this just fine, or once again, the router table with a flush cutter would also do this pretty quickly. Alright, and that is end of episode 5. We have 3 more videos, but I really do gotta head out now, and I will be back. Oh, hold on. Yeah, so I will be back to finish up the 3 videos a little bit later. So, sorry, gotta go. Bye.
Hi there, it's Tomster here on the behalf of Indestructible Productions.
Continuing
and
onwards
the
with
NV build
episode
goes
6.
on and on. What you've missed
Right.
so far,
So,
we added a small
come on. So now we have the Agatha. I think it was Agatha's. Well, I wonder. Oh, well, the body wood, whatever it was, maybe alder. We put ash veneer on the top with walnut binding. The neck has zebrano, bibinga, and walnut inlays, and then now an ash tailpiece.
tailpiece decoration to the NV guitar. Just had some
I don't know if it's a tailpiece,
ash
but
lying around.
to
so
the
I
end.
decided to cut a small triangle shape to go with the geometric shapes on the fretboard.
And now we're watching nothing because
or
I didn't really edit the videos all that well. It's just literally me taking all the footage I have and speeding it up and just putting it back to back to back to back.
So
Could have done a lot of more actual
those become
editing
a nice
where you
little
can see
addition.
what's happening a little bit better.
Now, this was very important. I actually had to measure over and over and over.
I actually had to measure is pretty much this guitar build or customization fully.
Again, where the actual battery pack would go in this guitar. and prepare my routing a little better than all the previous routing jobs I've had so far. First things first though, gotta make the switch for the batteries and the LEDs to be. Fairly straightforward, just need to make a hole. Not too big.
I can see that I haven't sanded this properly. There's still some lacquer and sealer coat around.
Big deal, really.
You can see it here as well. And yeah, excavate most of your material. Don't route the entire
Here's
thing.
everybody's favorite router at work again.
This is a very sure way to kind of kill the router bit. And yeah, the extraction didn't work. All that measuring, but it doesn't really look like I measured the template all that well.
What I also had to do at this point was make sure that I have somewhere to rest the back plate for the cavities. So I had to cut a small little area where the back plate would sit.
I need to make sure that I don't have two microphones on at the same time. I do not. Good.
And once again, something that was missed in the process was the actual back plates being made.
Now,
I made the...
let's have a look at my routing here, all right? So I have a back plate that is, well, it's made out of plywood. And it is, I want to say, probably 10 mil, if not more. That's way more. Like 20 mil at the back end here. And then it goes all the way down to half a mil right there. This isn't an exact shape. I doubt that this is either. Some of the edges look kind of rough.
Control cavity and the battery cavity, I made those out of ash that I had lying around. Unfortunately, I didn't have thick enough ash to actually make the cavity, so I made that out of really thick plywood. God, pronunciation, articulation.
This is the sort of stuff you shouldn't have in commentary tracks, but
I made that
like I
out
pointed
of
it out.
Really thick plywood.
I basically just edit the video, and then go back and record the commentary voiceover thing after the fact in one go. So I don't prepare anything. I just watch it and kind of react to it at the same time.
God, pronunciation, articulation. Now what I'm doing here, basically prepping the entire guitar for the first part of staining.
Now the stain did really work out
gets
pretty well.
with black before going along.
It could be done a little bit cleaner because it does drip quite a bit, and I had to get rid of that later on. You can see it's kind of seeping in places where it shouldn't. Burnishing down the masking tape would really do away with that, and not putting stain on as heavily as I'm putting it on right here.
With putting some green in there. Same goes for the cavity and back plates. Seeing as the cavity is the only thing they're actually going to see, that needs to be black so that it doesn't draw too much attention. Because who really wants to look at something ugly through a hole in your guitar?
I mean, I understood the point, but yeah.
As for the back...
Now, here, I didn't sand the neck properly. As you can see, there's still quite a bit of clear coat stuck on there that I didn't sand off. So, of course, the stain is not going to go on smoothly. It's going to be splotchy.
The back of the guitar to be, I went with a sort of I don't really know what color that would be.
Mahogany.
Chestnut color, I guess.
Nope,
Cherry
not
tree.
chestnut. It was
Really do not remember what
mahogany
that color was
labeled
called, but
color.
a nice light brown color. Now, with the black sort of sanded back a little, I go ahead and start putting on the green.
Like I said,
Now, originally this
like
was supposed to look a whole...
I mixed the colors myself, and I do really like how
lot
this green
different,
looks.
but after a little bit of experimentation, I decided that the green was pretty much the best looking color so far, so I didn't want to risk doing it in a different manner when it already looked good. As you can see, the back is already stained once and sanded down. Lightly sanded, I gotta add, and then re-stained with that same sort of orange brown.
And
Really
I
do not
can
remember the color.
see that some of the darker areas, that is probably where grain is raising up a little bit more. That's not sanded entirely all the way around in the same way, or to the same consistency, I should say. Oh, that was a quick one. Once again, no outro, because I always did the commentaries and didn't realize the video was ending. Right, so
And
here we
once
go.
again, it's Tomster here from Indie Structural Productions. with
Right, and I've pointed this out many, many times before. If you're cutting out mother of pearl inlays, use your material wisely. Don't cut it straight from smack dab middle of your piece. I'm wasting so much material by doing this because now I have a hole in the middle of a big piece of mother of pearl that I could have just, and it's just it's a couple of straight lines. I could have just put it right along the edge here, and I would have so much more extra pearl to work with later on when I decide to use more of it.
Another NV video, this time working on the headstock inlays. As you can see, working with mother of pearl. Once again, you have to actually remember to
I said
have
once
a
again, way too many
rebreather
times
or
here.
a mask of swords, because mother of pearl dust is actually poisonous as well.
Carcinogenic.
And definitely not good to breathe in whatsoever.
Wow, the music is
So-
very loud.
After breaking a few
In comparison
saw blades,
to the,
I actually managed to get the final designs
commentary.
out.
And that stuff you're hearing in the background, that's somebody in the apartment, in the kitchen, I think probably doing dishes or putting dishes back. You can hear cutlery.
I worked out the placement of the actual inlays, and
So as a
went ahead and
rule
got
of
my
thumb for
very,
anybody
very
who
sharp,
makes
very,
their own
very small
videos
chisel
on
and
YouTube or elsewhere,
started
watch
chiseling
the stuff
away to get the
that you're going to
inlays
be
in place.
uploading. So actually know if you need to go and edit something again or adjust things.
Once the inlays are in place, I just use normal super glue to do so. I sand them down and sand them down until they are completely flush with the rest of the headstock.
Or fly away, as it did here.
Oh, sorry, I didn't use super glue, I used epoxy to do this. And once that is done, go ahead and give it the same treatment as the top. First the black, then sand the black down and put on the green.
The music
Now,
is very,
with
very loud.
everything finally and completely stained, making sure that there are absolutely no drip marks anywhere, I prep the entire guitar for finishing.
Well, technically I'm already doing
First
finishing,
time
but
peeling the
spraying.
guitar back and seeing both the colors contrasted with each other.
Like,
Very
again,
pleased with the product, definitely, because
This-
this was
this would look pretty good if it was done better. The sort of mahogany color and then the really dark green. They do
more
look
of an
pretty good
experimental
together.
guitar than anything else. I am using high gloss spray lacquer to lacquer the guitars.
And here you can see my original spraying method, which was very much grounded in furniture making, which is what I was studying at the time, and much less painting a guitar, which is something that I'll do with another build, the monolith build, that we might react to. If people like these reaction videos, I'll do more of them.
Lacquer the guitar over and over again. I think I put in total 6 to 7 coats in order to get the
6 to 7 coats is not a lot. Usually one session will consist of 3 different coats, and I would at minimum do 3 sessions, so that's already 9 coats.
But it needed to have.
And no outro, video just ends. And the last episode.
Hello, it's Tomster here from...
And again, we're faced immediately, straight out the gate, with very loud music and very quiet commentary. Sorry about that.
The structural production.
But yeah, this is essentially the epitome of how I put guitars together back in the day. It was on my living room floor or my bedroom floor, where I would just do it like this, because it didn't have any workbenches or anything like that. So this is pretty on par with how I worked back then.
And the MP guitar is actually pulling together quite nicely.
And it doesn't look too bad, the back plates and everything, but trust me, with close-ups and looking a little bit closer to how things are, it's not exactly great as well. There is a little bit of wood putty in there just to fix things up, because I did get a little snag there, I think from routing or something like that. Got a little bit of tear out, so I just put wood filler or wood putty.
Basically what you see here, putting on the hardware. It is.
And I'm not sure, but I don't think I ever put oil on the fretboard, so it's pretty raw from
lacquered. It is shiny. It is nice.
Didn't do any fret work. Didn't polish the frets or anything like that.
Machine heads go in. Steel plate went in. Fairly basic stuff. You can tell what the power parts are and where they go, so
You can't hear any of the commentary.
I think I need to explain any further. I am pretty satisfied with how this went. All in all, there were a few
Look, a dog.
little mistakes here.
Oh, sorry, I'm pointing at the screen. Look, a
What are you
dog.
gonna do? Experimenting always has that issue. Now, this is where it gets interesting. First of all, I shield all the cavities with any sort of electronics to avoid any sort of hum whatsoever. And if you remember...
Oh, loading. Hold on. Come on. Did my internet just... I don't know how much was missed. So let me just go back a little bit.
Now, this is where it gets interesting. First of all, I shield here all the pots or anything where they worked, all the jacks.
Doggo.
I took pictures and I soldered everything together.
Jay helped out with
They
the
were in
electronics
the
back in the day.
That didn't really work, so I had Jay, also from Indie Structural Productions, do better soldering work than
This
I
is
could
how
ever
I
do.
Oh, now you can see the wood putty here. So right there, there's a big gouge in the wood. So I have putty here. Pretty obvious, but yeah. And yeah, these were my working conditions. Usually, it's dangerously close to the floor right there. No commentary for some reason. I think I just probably didn't know what to say. So it's not exactly very well planned out. But look at that little face.
few little tweaks here and there, we finally got the guitar working. We got the LEDs installed, all the hardware installed. I had to actually switch out the pots. They didn't work. I had to switch out all the hardware. None of it worked until I realized I had actually accidentally soldered the entire input jack backwards.
Yeah, that happened a lot.
Once I fixed that issue, everything worked, and the guitar plays like a dream, as you have probably heard from the demo video. If you haven't seen the demo video yet,
the battery pack is
check that
just...
out. It is the first video in the series.
Like, I didn't know that much about electronics, so I just went to an electronics supply store, and I said, "This is what I'm going to do. What do I need?" And he just gave me this stuff. So I have 8 AA batteries, and
I hope you enjoyed
about a strip that long
this
of
guitar build,
LED
and hope to see you again.
stuff.
But for now, let's let the video roll, and I am out. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.
So this is Jay doing the soldering here, because I didn't really know how to do soldering all that well. So Jay helped me out most of the time. Yeah. It will be interesting to know where this guitar is now. I don't have the contact information of the person who bought it from me back in the day, but if I did, I would ask if there's something I can do to make it better and function a bit better. And yeah, the video ends without us actually seeing, you know, the end result, which is strange. Yeah, that was that. Wow. Yeah. I don't know what to say. So if you do enjoy watching me watch some of my old build videos, do let me know. I have a couple of other builds still. Well, I have a good few builds that I have taken off of the page or the channel for a reason. This is one of them, and yeah, that was the Envy build. I'm gonna go now, and let me know if you want to see more of this, and I might oblige. Right. See you guys next time. A bit of a different stream this time, but we'll be back sooner rather than later with some actual honest to goodness guitar building. All right.